Hola, hola, and buenos dias, GnGs. My name is Trekkw2ks, and this is another episode of Weekend Crypto brought to you here on the Gemma Crypto Network. In case you don't know, the basic idea here is I cover crypto-related news that happens between a Friday and a Sunday and pop it out Monday morning, and it's done with a no price talk filter. So if you're looking for the tea on what the coin is or what the token is or something that happened with whatever pump, I'm not the segment for you. I don't apologize for it. And I've been doing it this way for a minute, and this is what works for me. But we do have other people on this network who do get definitely into the degen side of stuff and can give you more, chart breakdown stuff. I'm not that guy because I'm not a CPA, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a trader. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not that guy. I'm Trekkw2ks, and I share stories that scratch my brain that happened over the last 72 hours. And hopefully, something gets y'all to think and ask a question about what you're doing in this space now or what you will look to do in this space going down the road. So that's Weekend Crypto. Other thing to know, I just want to say thanks for the folks who are encouraging me in regards to the DMs that I get, the live chats when we doing that stuff in the morning time for my segment, as well as for the regular show with King down in crypto. That's at 10ish. Appreciate y'all, and then appreciate the lurkers, appreciate the scammers, because on the back end, we see the numbers doing what they do. So thank y'all for that. But also do remember, we are in the season, folks. The scammers are getting in. What is that word? In they're creative. Bottom line is they creative. So do be aware. We're in the season. It's the holiday time. Scammers is there. Nonetheless, I got a number of stories. Format of reading headlines and just giving you my head thoughts of what the stuff is. I got some indicators, some trends, and then I got a couple of things that are like, I don't know exactly what to call it, but it's something because it's scratching my brain. So let's jump into these stories. All right, so here we are on the first story. If you don't know, we about to get into that season, the IRS season. Basically, this story goes, hey, we're going to start ramping up the efforts to go after tax evasion folks. What they're really saying in this story is that what they realized was not that many criminals are using it. It's regular folks who are using crypto and making gains, and we're missing out on tapping their goddamn pockets. That's the bottom line of this story. Other thing to note that just got put out the other day, you might want to talk to your CPA about this, whoever your financial advisor is. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying it got put out that the thing about the threshold amount being $600 if you're using Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, and all of that, they're saying they're going to push that out into 2025. In my mind, IMM is in my mind. I think they're going to revisit the issue down the road, and then they're going to catch a number of people between 2024 and 2023, and definitely during the whole C19 period, for who was doing whatever they was doing in getting in on crypto and moving out on crypto, and especially if you touched fiat. So I'm not telling you what to do besides doing your due diligence and like how you're going to deal with that situation when they actually come. It's not when they come, but like when they send you an email or a letter saying, hey, we know that you are on blah, blah, blah exchange. You didn't answer X, Y, and Z on your tax form. Okay. So just so you know, it's going to ramp up because they're going to start focusing on the regular people who are not the quote criminals and hackers and shadowy coder people in hoodies. That's what this story is basically about. Don't get lulled into this whole thing of they're not going to go after the people who did above the, or at least a minimum of $600 using any of the money apps. Is going to come back, at least in my mind. So moving on from this story. Next story. Where are you at? Cryptopolitan, y'all revenue model looks kind of wonky because you added more lower thirds and upper third marketing stuff. Do understand also in general for everybody else who's watching or listening to this, any of these news platforms, news sites that you see me going through, it isn't me endorsing them as far as them being the most trusted news site. Because if you've been listening to me for the last however long, I be kind of digging into articles and like throwing and kind of tearing them up at points at times. So don't take me actually using these articles as a full endorsement of everything they say is right on point, because I definitely don't believe that. But whoever's behind Cryptopolitan, like, yo, I mean, I appreciate that y'all fixed the thing with how it was working before, where you couldn't necessarily see the title of stuff, but y'all still look like y'all out here just doing money grabs. But anywho, this story, I seen only 2 versions of this story. This one, when I seen it, it was just like, wait, how is it that this is not floating around more? And I'm gonna catch this one into another thing that came out too over this weekend with Elizabeth Warren. But let me address this part. So basically, the renewal for the National Defense, what is it called? The National Defense Act, Authorization Act is coming up. And usually what happens, because it is now considered one of those like, oh, we have to pass this bill, senators and Congress people will push stuff in because they know it has to get passed. That bill at large has to get passed, and they'll add in little things for them. So basically what happened is there's two things that are going on here. One is the AML thing between the Treasury Department and financial institutions saying, hey, we instead of you having to go to level 10 for transparency of what's going on with the financial institutions, you can just stick back at level 6, level 5.5. And then the other provision that was taken out was they don't have to make a publicly available report that is tracking all of the developments of mixers and tumblers and what different jurisdictions are doing as far as their regulatory policies and changes. They don't have to produce something that is publicly available. The way this article is worded, that's what I walked away with. This is that they can produce something internally, and then Congress can be like, hey, did you guys do any reports? And they could be like, well, yeah, we do have something. And it was like, well, can I get a copy of that? But it's a process to get the internal document released to Congress. And this is what I'm assuming, because it's not requiring them to make any kind of report. That's my point. It is not requiring the Treasury to make a report, which to me is kind of redundant and stupid. Here's why. We already have the OFAC, which is under the Treasury Department. They produce a report. The IMF produces a report. The BIS produces a report. America sits on all of those different international bodies. The WEF, the BIS, the IMF, we sit on all of those bodies. They all produce reports. There's literally a website that tracks all of the development of CBDCs. So it isn't like the information isn't out there. In my mind, in relation to this particular thing, is who was lobbied for, or who was lobbying to get this language taken out of the new bill? That's the question. And this, whoever's covering this in, Cryptopolitan, they don't even touch the subject of, well, why did this come up? Who was the senator or the congressperson who was like, I'm gonna pull this out of it? They don't even touch that. Again, this is the point of like, I hope that I can at least get y'all to think and question what's going on right now. How is it that y'all was all pro, we need to be 100% transparent and follow transportation laws, and now all of a sudden you stepping back the throttle? How'd that work? Why? Other thing to think of, make this connection. Again, IMM. In my mind, if this is being pushed out now so that it will fall in next year, arguably somebody might be making preparations or have plans to what will happen when whoever gets the ETF thing going, right? And how the money is going to be moving around in the institutional side. Because it ain't gonna be a retail level thing, y'all. Like this being taken out isn't about the retail level folks. This is about the institutional government, national, global firms and companies and like family trust folks. This ain't about retail level folks. So I'm gonna just leave that there. Do your own due diligence. Dig down on that if you want. Link for this will be in the description. Hey, and then you can always totally counter what I'm saying if you think it's something else totally different. Again, we don't delete comments. It's YouTube if it does get deleted, but we do keep receipts. Jump into this next story. So, what was it? Like 2-3 weeks back, I had told y'all about how the C state is going to test out their CBDC, aka Blue Dog, in Hong Kong. If you don't know where Hong Kong is, go look at a map and see where Hong Kong sits. To the mainland is the C state. Okay, so now you have it that Singapore and the C state. If you don't know where Singapore is, Singapore sits at the bottom of Malaysia, which is on the same peninsula as Bangkok. If you haven't been out that way, it is what it is. I highly encourage you to at some point go take a trip out to the east, because what this article and a couple other things that are going on in the stories that I got, things are definitely being set up and positioned, and the way the crypto stuff, the blockchain stuff, the CBDC stuff, the way those things are going to develop outside of the US, it's going to be like we're going to be on level 3 and X amount of other places in the world is going to be on level 9, level 10. That's what it's looking like to me. This is my IMH, which is also in my head, okay? So if I say IMM or IMH, I'm saying either in my mind or in my head, okay? But this basically is the C state in Singapore is making it that if you're doing tourism trips back and forth between Singapore and the C state, their central banks are basically allowing you to be able to get access to the Blue Dog coins, and then you can buy stuff. So that means that I didn't get what the timeline was for this. Like, does it start in January? Because in my mind, it would mean then that they have the software already in the retail vendors' machines for them to be able to process CBDC transactions. That's what that would mean to me. So it's going to be interesting to see how things work out for them during next year. So 2024, 2025. The other thing to note, if you're paying attention to stuff going on in the shipping world or in how the BRI is developing out, this makes sense to me as far as where Singapore sits because it's by the Malacca Strait. There's a whole thing going on down there with that. Like I be saying, I be having a lot of stuff on my radar and it's just cross-referencing stuff. I know what I'm saying doesn't necessarily make immediate sense to if you're just a regular average day person here in the States who doesn't look to like go outside of the US, or even if you don't even go outside of your state, right? But if you are one of the people who go, crypto is this global thing, blockchain technology is borderless and all of that, idealism stuff, things like this have a relevance in how you have your outlook and understanding of this space and what it means to traditional finance, to traditional government, to geopolitics. All of this stuff is mixed in. And this is part of why I be saying some of the things I say, as well as cover some of the stories I cover. But I'm gonna stop beating this horse. I'm jumping on to this next story. So, all right, there we go. So this joint, I've seen a couple of things that were getting into what's gonna go on with Binance International. I am still mind blown at the fact that this is not an American company. It wasn't an American citizen, and they still put their foot on their neck. Like, so the DOJ is basically the unofficial boss for Binance going forward. And the crazy part is when you see the news stories, everything is about Binance, and they're not making the distinction between Binance International and Binance US, right? And so all of the stuff that's being set up for like how Binance has to now have a DOJ person on their like as that works in the office, quote, and they have to be the one who's like, you have to say something to them for all of the decisions that they're going to make. One of the things they recently did was they took back their application for a license in the UAE. I don't know exactly what the thought process was behind that, but they said the new dude said something like, oh, well, we're trying to, move in a new direction and we're looking to make sure that we're compliant with blah, 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 which then leads me to think, considering the amount of money that's moving around the United Emirates and that region of the world, and what I see some other players doing within the space, it's almost like a backwards kind of move to not look to have some presence in that market space. In my mind, it seems like the US is going to slowly choke out Binance International by basically running the business into the ground. I still think CZ, aside from the potential jail situation, I honestly think he kind of got he got an easy way out. He got it in my mind, but time will tell if what I'm thinking is what it is. Nonetheless, the short of this particular article is the DOJ is making sure they can pretty much do everything to run Binance International into the ground as a business. I don't personally see them making it to 2030, but I could be way the hell wrong. And then the other thing that the dude who's the new CEO just announced is they want to make an official headquarters. That's going to be the real T right there. Where's the headquarters going to be at? But we'll see how it play out over the coming, weeks and months. And, 2024 is literally not even around the corner. The shit is at the corner. We looking at the block the width way, not the length way. Okay. So for those who are in Binance and, y'all doing what y'all do on the trading side of it, you might want to really pay attention to what's going on, over the next, weeks and months. Cause I can't see with the way of what they're looking to do, it just doesn't seem like they want the business to work. That's my thought process. I'm not even going to say this one. I'm a wait and see how some things play out. I just had another thought on something. But anywho, damn. All right, here we go. So next story, Decrypt, Rug Radio to combine in merger of equals, says Axios. All right, so Decrypt is a crypto news website. Rug Radio is this new audio content visual platform. I literally had to go and find one of the videos of the founder dude and listen to him explain some of the stuff to it. I'm not bringing this story up to you as a price talk thing. I'm not telling it to you as a this is something you want to pay attention to as far as the platform. Why I'm bringing this story up to you is because I know somebody who works over at Decrypt. He's a good writer. He's a smart dude. He's been in the space for a minute. And so I know what Decrypt does. I met their marketing person. I think last year I met her. I didn't know who Rug Radio was. And the short of it is this: they're going to come together, but they're going to still maintain their individual branding, right? The brand narrative, the brand message, the brand image, all of that fun stuff, right? But what I think might be coming out of this, which doesn't necessarily come through in this article in the way it's written, is that they're going to do something that crosses their content. One side focuses on news stuff. The other side focuses on being able to have like a podcast kind of setup, as well as the video content side of things, right? But Rug Radio is pushing the whole narrative of like, own your content as the content creator, control the narrative. I'm not going to run in. I'm not doing a platform breakdown. Here's why I brought this story up. In my mind, this would count as an indicator, but I'm not 100% on it being an indicator. I'm kind of going, is this an indicator to news platforms trying to move vertically into other content platforms or mediums in order to change the revenue model or expand the revenue model? If that makes sense. And like, we just seen that CoinDesk, and some of y'all know how I feel on CoinDesk, they just got bought out. So it's making me wonder, is the revenue model for news platforms, and particularly within this crypto ecosystem, are they either changing or are they about to change or expand their revenue model by doing this kind of biz development, this biz partnership thing? That's my thought process. We'll see what happens in a couple of months, if I was right or wrong. But I did say something to y'all. All right. And this is just on this might be the changing of an indicator to the changing of the news landscape. There we go. Next story. Come on. Like, they fixed it a little bit, but then they added more friggin' advertisements. This is the stuff that makes me look at it and be like, yo, y'all definitely are just chasing the bag. Like, whatever. Anywho, what is this one? Yeah, so the US, this story had me cracking up too when I read through this. So the US, South Korea, and Japan had a meeting with all of their like the big financial people, right? And it's like, hey, we need to combat North K and what they doing with the crypto because it's funding their WMDs. I need y'all to understand the craziness of how you can't make this movie up. Like, you know when they say like reality is stranger than fiction? This is one of those this is one of those parts of the movie where you just look at it and be like, nah, they had to make this up. Let me put this in context for y'all. The country that has dropped the atom B on the other country that's in this trio is telling them, we need to watch those people that are at your southwest, because if you know where North K and South Korea sit, you understand where Japan sits. I'm hoping y'all understand how it looks on a map. You got to worry about them because we're telling you that they're up to no good and they're using crypto to fund WMDs. This is the same country that had one of the most highest respectable generals in probably the last 3 since Eisenhower generations go on the global stage and make a statement about WMDs in another country, and then a whole thing kicked off of that, and then it comes out later like, oh, none of that was there. And he now is one of the dirtiest shirts in the military, as far as like, for those of y'all who know, X number of us in this whole, crypto, the German crypto thing, some of us are still gang, some of us are gang affiliated, some of us was that in a past life, right? But Colin Powell was that guy who went on the national stage and said what he said, and then it came out after like, nah, dog, that was all a lie. This is the same country that's telling these other 2 players to go and do X, Y, and Z. I bring this story up because it goes to the point of you can't make up the reality of what is being done in our face. And these are the elected officials and the unelected officials at the government level who are making these decisions and taking these actions and pushing these narratives and stories. And X amount of the public is like just rolling with it. And when you try to say something, it's like, well, what are you talking about? What do you mean? What am I talking about? It's X amount of a hoax. Here's the other thing to think about within this. North K can't just be like, oh, we stole X amount of crypto via whatever, sanctioned party did the activity. And then be like, well, we want to go and buy electronic components at blah, 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 commercial level stuff. There's no company and no country that accepts crypto for military grade equipment or components or natural resources to build the components. But they provide no actual documented evidence that goes, here's how we see the crypto that is being taken, stolen, hacked, whatever, by this group, travel to the government level, and then it goes to these different vendors who sell the raw materials or the actual components or the item in whole to North K. But we're just supposed to go with the narrative and the story of this is what they're doing. And again, I know some of us are still gang. I am one of those people. So I say this not as me giving financial advice. I'm not a CPA. It's just one of those, I look at this situation, and when people tell me shit about, our government, blah, 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 or crypto, this, that, and the third, and it's just like, dog, like, no, I'm not the average dodo bird walking the street with this. Like, no, you're not gonna give me the narratives, because I know better. In my mind, I'm a history person too. If you ever actually talk to me, I'm a history person. I might not know every date down for down to the minute, but it's a number of things that I'm aware of. Nonetheless, I had to question what the point of this story was, because it is pushed as collaboration, but it's also collaboration based on what arguably IMM to me is bullshit, but it sounds good because it goes towards the bigger narrative. NK, North K is the boogeyman to watch out for. So it makes me wonder if there's going to be more stories before the end of the year in relation to NK. And again, going back to the story about the thing that was taken out of National Defense Act, arguably it would be the Treasury Department to track this stuff and make the reports about what the countries and jurisdictions around North K are doing to combat them being able to funnel money through the system. You got to remember, North K also does business with the C state and the R state. So it's just like, well, what are y'all really talking about? Like, they're not using crypto for that, and you're not validating it, like with actual documented data. That's y'all don't know how much I be wanting to curse sometimes on here. I'm trying to not be the one. All right, so next story. South Africa regulators may require crypto firms to have a local office. Short of this, in my mind, this is an indicator that they will more than likely get this to go through. Why? Because what you're seeing on the global scale is X amount of the regulatory development is centered around being able to either somehow touch or freeze what part of the crypto industry is within your jurisdictional reach. You look at what South Korea has been doing, you look at what's coming out of Latin America, you look at what's going on in Europe, you look at what's going on in even Kazakhstan. I got a story about Kazakhstan too. What's going on in the sea state, what's going on in other parts of Africa. Look at what Australia's doing. Everything is about somehow or another being able to have influence or direct control over the capital flight mechanism or the medium, right? And so within that, and mind you, it's only like 10% of the exchanges that are in South Africa don't have an office in there. So it's either the bigger exchanges that have the higher volume aren't where they can touch. They already got X amount locked down on the folks who are local, but they want the ones who are outside. So it's a bottom line of whoever's the accounting person, if you have users that are in South Africa, you now are going to have to calculate, what is this going to mean to our compliance? What is this going to mean to our operations if we actually have to open an office there? Because I could also see that if they tell you, if it goes through and then you have to open an office in 2024, I can see that not even past 2027, some new regulation thing is going to come into play where now you got to worry about how you're dealing with the taxes. I got another tax story, a matter of fact, that is a little bit further in. Look at what Brazil just did, where they were like, hey, if you're using a foreign exchange, we're going to charge you near double what it would be if you were using a local Brazilian exchange. The protectionism and the whole thing of capital flight controls is being pushed in various countries, in various jurisdictions, in various ways. That's the bottom line of the trend of what's going into 2024. And it's only going to ramp up even more, at least in my take of it. Jumping on to this next joint, for the folks who were into Brave back in the day, as far as the token thing that they had, for the folks who are, centralized exchanges, who's into Uphold, excuse me, they are now launching a ability for the paid side of the service, which, excuse me, when I seen the amount, I was like, is that really worth it? Because I can only imagine that, like, come 2025, this is definitely going to be $100 or more. So basically, it's like, hey, if you want to be able to recover your account without using the seed phrase stuff, we have this way for you, but it's on the paid side. Here's the thing that gets me when I was reading this story. Like, think about this, y'all. I would think about this. You are I'm gonna say grown adult, and I'm gonna cap it at like 17 and up. You're a grown adult. You have a credit card. You walk around with money in your wallet or in your purse. Some of y'all have credit cards, and some of y'all got bank cards that got 5K plus amounts they connected to. You don't worry about losing your bank card. You don't worry about losing the cash in your wallet or in your purse or just the money rolled up in your pocket. But yet, you don't trust yourself to be able to arguably, it's simply, save the pin or the seed phrase in a place and don't lose it. Or set up a system that works to where, hey, you can go to somebody else. Because case in point, if you lose your wallet at a place, 9 times out of 10, you get the wallet back, you don't get the money that was in it or the cards. And then if you get the card, because what this, in my mind, boils down to is it's about the, what is the word I say? It is about the outsourced or delegated, there we go, delegated responsibility. Folks who are now more of the folks coming into crypto now are used to the thing of delegated financial responsibility. If I lose my credit card and someone spends, I can go to the card issuer. I can go to the bank and have them deal with it. It's not about me who lost it for whatever reason it was. Did I get robbed? Did I just happen to leave my bag someplace? Whatever. And so here you have it that Uphold is like, hey, we're going to launch this feature and service. I imagine in probably 15 months, you're going to hear about something going wrong with this. I give them 15 months from now to, into 2025. 15 months, something's going to happen. I'm not wishing it on anybody, but here's what I know. When you make a situation for a honeypot to be put up, it's almost like ringing the kettlebell, man. Like, what you think people who want to get money as a hacker or a scammer are going to do? That's my thought process. If you're using it, hopefully it helps you. Hopefully you're not one of the people who get caught out there. Hopefully. But I also do hope you are practicing better OPSEC in your, crypto involvements and exchange involvements, and you don't get caught out there. I hope that. I really do. Next story. Japan Mulls exempting companies from paying taxes on unrealized crypto gains. What did I just say? The indicators that I'm looking at go, countries in the different jurisdictions are trying to find ways to either bring foreign companies into their jurisdiction or to bring the company or keep the companies that they have in their jurisdiction. The tax thing is going to be part of that new front going forward. You're going to have it where you're going to double tap on taxes for the foreign companies who have some of your citizens. And then you're going to make, quote, favorable tax numbers for your local crypto blockchain related company that is dealing with your citizenship. And you're going to do some protectionism exclusionary thing. I don't know how this is going to work out for Japan. I just know that I'm taking this as a bigger indicator to the pattern of these different countries are going to start playing favoritism via taxes. And this is not for the retail level. This is for the institutional level, folks. So we're going to see how it looked in 2024 and 2025. And it's going to ramp up next year, that the different forms of protectionism and capital flight controls mechanisms are going to ramp up. That's my thought process. All right, this story. Okay, so this story, again, it's the things that scratch my brain, and then because I kind of pay attention to multiple things, and I'm not saying I'm the expert on everything or one particular thing, but it's one of those. I have a number of things on my radar, and then I kind of cross-reference stuff based on conversations or based on something somebody mentioned to me or something I heard somebody say or whatever. That's why I kind of be all over the place with some of the stories that I convey. And then at the same time, I also, if they're not directly apparent crypto, I try to bring it back around to the crypto side. This story in particular, I'm actually, and I don't know all of the details on this because I didn't actually go and look at the court documents on like what they filed for why they were arguing with each other. But I would take this as a potential indicator. What I've noticed over the last month and change, or about 2 months, is that there have been more crypto mining stories making the cycle in the American based the American market. So as far as companies that are here, I've heard a number of other stories for like what is that? The UAE has some stuff going on in Latin America, but more so of the stories have been centered around the American based companies. And so with this one, what happens is you have the operator who does the daily maintenance stuff of the mining facility gets kicked out of the mining facility by the owner of the facility who supplies the power and the other thing, I forgot the other word I'm thinking of right now. But they do it with armed security. Hey, you guys didn't pay us this. We're gonna go sue you. All right, well, we're gonna countersue you for blah blah blah. And so it ends off that the company Rhodium uses armed security to take their people and be like, hey, you guys go home. Hey, you people from the other company, you can't come back in here, and we're cutting the power and stuff off on y'all. And it boiled down to they were looking at their numbers and they were like, yo, we were losing money in the past X number of quarters. You guys haven't paid us. This isn't looking like a good investment partnership to us. We want our money. They don't give two craps about the ideals of Bitcoin and blockchain technology. It was basically about the ones and zeros to them. And they weren't making the returns that they wanted to make. And the company, what's the name of the actual company? So Rhodium Enterprises is the case operation. Wait, who was it entered? I might have said it wrong. Okay, Riot. Right, I said it wrong. Rhodium is the operator. This company called Whinstone, which is a subsidiary of Riot Platforms, they're the ones that shut down the facility and kicked Rhodium's people out. My thought on this is, considering that I've seen a number of other stories pop up in the news cycle over the last like 2 months related to mining, I'm wondering how the mining space is going to look next year. And I said this to y'all before in another story about how the thing of like the 51% attack, we think it's about, do you just attack the chain with another person's interest overtaking it, if they get enough of the miners to collude together to do the thing. But it's just like, well, these miners are physical locations, physical devices. If you get the company, and this is the other part of it too, where you get into the thing of like, does it make sense as a business to be the operator of a mining facility? And when things go down, if you have whatever partnership worked out with the owner of the equipment and who provides the energy stuff, you lead to this situation. I wonder if more stuff like this is going to end up coming up as we proceed into the rest of this decade. And in part because there are more deals like this than people realize. Like the situation up in New York, it's the company that's the NASDAQ published company, but the operator is someone else. And then like they had the whole thing of where the state governor for New York is like, hey, we're not going to let you renew your license. And so I think they have like less than 3 years left. And then they got to figure out where else they're going to go after that. But what does that mean? The point of where I'm going with this is these kind of partnership deals in the mining space, I think, are going to start to unravel as we move further in the decade, especially when you're dealing with folks who give two craps about economic sovereignty, financial freedom, and all of the not woo-woo, but all of the idealism stuff that we spouted in the space in the earlier years. That's where I'm going with that. As you see, there's a number of stories on here. So jumping into this next one, Judge grants SEC another week to explain alleged misinterpretations of Utah crypto case. So I brought this up last week. I was actually surprised to see that there was a follow-up story on this. I only seen this once. Yo, I'm gonna give you the metaphor for this. You know when you go to a restaurant and you're just like, oh wow, okay, this is what it looks like inside. This is the food they have, and you kind of have a funky experience, and like you write a review about it, and somebody else might agree with you or whatever, and then you happen to go back, like you go by the place like a week later, and then you see a sign that says new management, and you go inside and you look, and you're just like, wait, but it's still the same chairs, it's still the same menu. I think that's the same cook. This is what they did on this case. There's a company called Debtbox or something like that. There's some kind of exchange or whatever. And basically, what the situation was before was the lawyers who were running the case told the judge they needed to freeze the assets of the company because they were closing accounts and moving things around. It turned out none of it was true, but that's what they told the judge to get the judge to freeze the company's stuff. Now, the judge scolds them, right? I'm recapping right now. The judge scolds them for what they did. Hey, explain this shit. What do they do? The SEC folks go, all right, we're just going to switch out the whole team and say new management. And it, quote, wipes the slate clean. Like, you still froze their stuff. You're not, unless you're telling me, at least in my mind, that you're going to give them access back to, like, you're going to give them the access back to their stuff. It doesn't matter who the new lawyer is on the case. You lied in the beginning. The judge, and then the part of the facade of this is, oh, trust the system. Oh, trust the court. Oh, there is a process. The system does work. If the system worked, the judge wouldn't have given them, in my mind, if the system worked correctly, you shouldn't be playing well, I'm going to give y'all time to fix everything up and then come back to me. No, they knew they did wrong. If they didn't do wrong, they wouldn't have cleaned house and brought in new management. In my mind, that's how I'm looking at it. If they didn't do wrong, they wouldn't have cleaned house and set a whole new team in. And that's literally what they're arguing in this case now is, oh, give us some time to get the new team up to speed. And then we'll come back and explain it, which means this story will probably get lost definitely going into next year because we're going to be in January and holiday season, things are shutting down. But just one of those things to follow up on. And it goes to the meme that I did the other day about Gary Gensler being, their leadership. And it's just like, if the dude don't want to answer questions in Congress, what makes you think the lawyers are actually being rightful or truthful in cases in the court systems? Like, all right, bet. Here's the crossover, y'all. There is a post on Twitter floating around that Caitlin Long put out. It shows Elizabeth Warren was in contact and communication with Gensler before their subcommittee hearing. That was the banking subcommittee hearing, right? Somebody put in a FOIA request about communication between her office and Gensler's office. And then it came out black and white. Hey, they were communicating. She was asking them if the questions were okay to be asked. She was also advising, or at least whoever was writing on the documents was advising, well, you might want to answer this question this way, blah, blah, blah. The point is there was collusion and coordination between the elected official and the non-elected official. If this is what's happening and is it officially documented, what makes y'all think that any of this is going to be fair at the retail level? It just don't make sense in my mind that it would be fair in any way for the everyday average person if this is what they're doing at that level. That's my thought process. If you disagree with me, cool. Comments is open. I'm in the live chat with you. Let's go. Right? But I just wanted to throw that one out there. The funky part too is I think you would have to go to Caitlin Long's post to get it now, because if you try to get the original poster, it says that the video's deleted, but I imagine somebody had put it out someplace else, because it was, funny enough, it was a Fox reporter who was covering it, which then makes me wonder, I'm about to run down into a hole real quick. Why is this coming out now? Is it a sideways slant at Gensler, or is it a sideways slant at Elizabeth Warren? And if somebody was able to get the FOIA request in and answered, and they provided the documents unredacted, where's the one that's going to come up for Jamie Dimon? Who's putting in the one for Jamie Dimon for that recent interaction they had like a week or something ago? Because you can't tell me that wasn't coordinated, because she stays softballing the questions. But anywho, jumping off to this next joint. Where we at? All right. Top infrastructure providers join Flare to enable the blockchain for data. All right. The short part of this, I'm trying to rail myself back in because I know I was getting hyped on some things. So Flare is like Infintura. It's one of the infrastructure on the back end side companies, right? That in relation to the EVM ecosystem. Here's the thing to understand about what they're trying to push in the narrative of Flare is going to help push and promote decentralization of blockchain technology by going to vetted, approved uh, business partners in the space to be the validators, to be the oracles, to be these centralized oracles. So here's the thing to understand about this decentralization narrative and like argument. You have the tech stack of it, and then you have the business development side of it. So the question is, if you're looking at it from a tech stack part, well, it's different companies that are in different regions that have their technology footprint set up different. So arguably, there's a level of decentralization in that it's not like all of the businesses are in one building and all of their servers and racks are all in the same basement, and it's not that, right? So from a standpoint of that, yes, you can argue it is a level of decentralization. But when you get into the other side of, well, how many businesses are we talking for what is supposed to be open, permissionless? But then again, we're talking about Ethereum, that Ethereum left that train a long time ago. Well, not a long time, but long enough ago. Because now we on the whole thing of like proof of stake, which isn't about open access. It's about who has the biggest bag. If you do anything proof of stake at this point, it's all about who has the biggest bag. And so now you have these companies that have a somewhat agreed upon invested interest to work within, to be a part of this network, but it's still a small consortium of approved players in this consortium. And these players also have their individual missions and agendas that may not always agree with the bigger collective. Whether we're talking about the partnership between, you know, the what is it, 8 or 11 companies themselves, as well as what is going on within the bigger community and how the user base feels about decisions that they make based on a business mindset or the tech stack development mindset. And so I bring this story up in particular, not because you need to know who Flare is, but because this is just another example of the pattern of how we are developing going forward. We're putting more and more choke points within the space. And there's also this thing in my mind going on of where we're conflating the distinction between like, what decentralization are we talking about? Are we talking about the tech stack of it? Or are we talking about the business setup? That's my thought process. Again, I think that going forward, we're just going to see more of this as the tide of where the money is coming from, where the capital is coming from, is at the institutional side. That's what's bringing all of this shit along for the whole thing of like where the centralization, the choke points, the funnel points are being built in. It's because of the institutional side. It wasn't about the retailers. That's my thought process. All right, next joint. Oh, all right. So the other week it came out, Jack is funding a mining thing called Ocean Pool. Ocean Pool is anti-ordinals. It now comes out, folks over at Samourai Wallet are like, yo, you guys are censoring our transactions. Like, you're not letting them go through. There's a thing, there's a not a, I don't want to say algorithm, but there's a bit of code called knots. And knots is what Ocean Pool uses to block ordinal transactions from going through their mempool stuff, their mining pool side of things. And so when I first seen that announcement with Jack about the whole, I want to, you know, revolutionize Bitcoin mining, I was like, I don't know if I trust you. I don't know if I trust you. I'm gonna go out on a limb on this one. If this is what is going on with Ocean Pool now, what do you think is going to happen when we get into next year and there's more regulatory stuff going on in the space? There's more things about, like, again, everyone is moving in this direction of putting more controls and choke points in. What Ocean Pool is doing, in my mind, is just making for a more feasible situation for a government to come in and be like, hey, you need to do blah, blah, blah. That's my thought process, which I then made another leap. And I think that the clock for Cash App as a viable tool to acquire crypto has started in terms of it not being a viable method anymore. The countdown clock has started on Cash App. And the reason why I say this is, if you are out here touting that you were going to do something to totally revolutionize and make mining better for Bitcoin, but then you do two things that look at base level, whether you agree with ordinals or not, whether you agree with mixers or not, how I choose to use the technology isn't your decision. Now, granted, it is your tech stack, but if you said that you were about permissionlessness of blockchain technology, Bitcoin is for everyone. Now you're saying Bitcoin is for everyone, but with conditions. You should have said that shit from the get-go. And in my mind, I think that's part of what's going on here. I might be way wrong. They could prove me way wrong come next year when everything really starts to get underway. They could prove me way wrong. But for right now, it looks like they have fully implemented methods of censorship that I think will be exploited next year going forward, especially if the company makes it, longer than and they expand and blah, blah, blah. But I also think that some of this behavior may carry over into Cash App. So in my mind, Jack being the connection, this may grow into an issue, and the clock has started to where I'm like, I think Cash App might not be the move in another X amount of years. If even multiple years is the timeline. It might be even shorter than that. I don't know. This is me just scratching the brain the way I do. Anywho, if you disagree with me, it's cool. I'm all here for it if you disagree with me. Not a problem. All right, last joint. Was that the last joint? I don't think it was. But anywho, Kazakhstan blocks, it said 980, but I seen another article that was like, it was like a little bit closer to 1,000 exchanges from operating in the country. And literally what it was they just basically cut off the internet. They blocked the IP stuff for the exchanges that didn't get the license permit that they needed to operate in the country. So like if you wasn't using a VPN, basically you couldn't get into your Coinbase account. That was the bottom line of that. I bring up this story because it relates to a couple of other things as far as if you know where Kazakhstan sits, it sits on the west coast of the sea state, and it is one of the major ports for land rail, like distribution channels as far as land. It is a heavy rail port. They spent a number of millions of dollars getting their stuff built out there. And so why I bring this up is because one of the other things that I've said weeks back or whatever is that what is the BRI, right? Belt Road Initiative for the sea ports, the land ports. What is it going to look like when you have CBDCs, cryptos, fiat, all in the same mix? I think that there's going to be some micro markets, or maybe gray markets is a better word, or micro gray markets. I don't know exactly. We'll see what the internet comes up with for the name of it down the road. But I think those things are being developed out. And part of what Kazakhstan's folks is doing is, one, they're setting themselves up to have better capital flight controls by making sure that the players within their jurisdiction went to them and paid the homage, got the certificate. Now you can operate. But they're also going to start getting more into like, hey, you need to follow the AML stuff, the transparency stuff, which only goes to a certain level, right? But I also think that they're setting themselves up for what they see coming down the pike with the expansion of the sea states, CBDC, and their own CBDC, because I forget who's doing their thing, but they're doing their version of a CBDC too. And so they're setting themselves up within the crypto asset, digital asset, setup now, because they're preparing for the 2024 plus of how the financial landscape is going to look. It's going to look very different. That was the base one of that. What was this last one? Hold on. Come on. I'm really annoyed with how they are doing this thing. For the dev folks, for the folks who are tinkerers, for the folks who are, heavy on the EVM side, if you're a developer and all of that stuff, basically this crypto company, the cyber company comes out like, hey, there's some vulnerabilities in the smart contracts. And the story has came out how many times year for year? X amount of the Ethereum EVM ecosystem for smart contracts is literally based on like less than 15% of the public library. And majority of those contracts are copy and paste. So of course, if version, 0.1.5 on Polygon had an issue, then version 0.1.9 on Ethereum is going to have an issue. And so companies like Third Web, they had to do X amount of migration of their smart contracts. Third Web is like a low code, no code development environment for folks who want to do, NFT projects or any kind of like gaming stuff, or like low level game stuff. I know somebody over there, I got to reach out to them, as a matter of fact. But the point is, this happened. What I also thought was interesting about this article, because I've seen it with more than one version, there was nothing that was actually attributed to, hey, we know that one of the contracts from this public library, I forgot the company that that like hosted the libraries, we know that this contract in that library was used to scam or hack X, Y, and Z. It's literally just the cyber company is like, hey, we found these vulnerabilities. We told this company and this company because we know they use those libraries, and that's it. But we didn't actually say, well, here's what we've traced and like we've proven when we look at the transaction history that this smart contract and this smart contract had the exploit of X, Y, and Z. And like there's none of that to it. So arguably, this is just a promotion piece for the cybersecurity company. Arguably. But nonetheless, that's the last story I got for y'all. I know I went long on this one. A number of things might not have been in your interest. Hopefully, I covered a variety of things and something got you thinking, got you questioning, got you kind of reevaluating what you're doing. I'm not saying this to be a CPA, a lawyer, a financial advisor. It's just I've been in the space for a minute. I see things and some of the things scratch my brain. So in my mind, I feel like sharing some of these things with y'all. And that's what I got. Other than that, hope y'all have a P over B day. And if it can't be that, at least, from one human to the next, be in a safe place, in a safe space, and with good company. And that's what I got for you. All right, y'all. 1.